You know a moment's gone nuclear when a fast food chain hijacks the WNBA discourse. And that's exactly what Sophie Cunningham pulled off with nothing but a TikTok, a bold opinion, and an ARBY'S t-shirt. It started with a fine. Just $500. A petty slap on the wrist by the WNBA after Sophie posted a TikTok that, let's be real, echoed what half the league's fans and players were already whispering under their breath. The officiating is trash. In her video, Cunningham called the referees slow, stupid, and useless. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. No profanity. No direct targeting. Just honest frustration in a league where consistency in calls is as rare as a 4-point play. The WNBA's response? Silence the messenger. But if you thought Sophie Cunningham was going to be humbled, you clearly don't know her or the internet. That fine didn't shut her up. It lit the fuse. 3 days later, she shows up to the Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky game, not in some designer drip or team warm-up, but in a plain, white ARBY'S t-shirt. No caption, no context, just vibes. And suddenly, the internet broke. That photo hit X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram like a missile. Within hours, ARBY'S was trending. Sports blogs were scrambling, and memes were multiplying. Cunningham had taken a punishment and turned it into branding gold. And not just for herself, but for ARBY'S, a fast food chain that hadn't had this much buzz since they were trolling Pharrell's Grammy hat. By the end of the week, ARBY'S had publicly praised her. Her TikTok following had exploded by over 700,000 users, and her jersey was backordered on the WNBA site. Let that sink in. A player got fined for telling the truth, made a joke out of it, and then cashed in. You can't make this up. What's wild is that the league handed her the blueprint. The WNBA's attempt to slap her on the wrist only spotlighted the exact thing they wanted to hide: bad officiating and their allergy to accountability. Instead of addressing the root cause, they tried to suppress a player's voice. That strategy might have worked in 1998, but in 2025, welcome to the era where a t-shirt and a TikTok can do more PR damage than a press conference. Sophie's genius wasn't just in the stunt. It was in her timing, tone, and follow-through. She never apologized, never backtracked. She let the content speak, and the audience responded like wildfire. That's what authenticity does. Fans don't just want polished statements and media-trained sound bites. They want raw. They want real. And Sophie gave them that in spades. She didn't dress it up. She showed up in a drive-thru logo and let the subtext scream, "Find me again, I'll just get richer." It wasn't long before other brands started circling. Energy drinks, streetwear labels, even whispers of a Netflix docuseries following outspoken athletes who disrupt the game. Suddenly, Sophie Cunningham, role player turned rebel, was on everyone's radar. And it wasn't just the fans and sponsors watching. Even Lakers owner Jeannie Buss reportedly reached out after the stunt, commending Cunningham's media savvy and business instincts. This wasn't just some petty protest. It was a masterclass in flipping the narrative. Think about the bigger picture here. Cunningham didn't break any laws. She didn't insult anyone personally. She didn't throw a ball or a tantrum. All she did was speak a truth the league didn't want to hear. And that truth had value. Millions in eyeballs, engagement, and eventually dollars. Now the league sitting on a powder keg. Because if Cunningham's story proves anything, it's that the WNBA can't control the narrative anymore. They can fine players, but they can't fine public opinion. They can restrict press conferences, but they can't restrict the For You page. And it's not just Sophie. Other players are watching, seeing the ROI of boldness, wondering what would happen if they stopped playing nice and started playing real. It's a dangerous game for the WNBA, because every time they try to mute a personality, they risk launching a star. The irony? The WNBA needs players like Sophie more than ever. The league is in a pivotal moment. TV ratings are climbing, new fans are tuning in, and young stars are making headlines. But what's going to sustain that momentum? Not corporate-approved content, not safe interviews. It's the drama, the moments, the people. Sophie Cunningham understood that instinctively. She turned a fine into fuel, a joke into a movement, a T-shirt into a statement. And the statement is clear: you can't find personality. By the time the next game rolled around, dozens of fans were spotted in bootleg Arby's shirts. Some had slogans: "We have the beefs." Others just plastered Sophie's face on curly fries. The movement wasn't just viral, it was cultural. Meanwhile, the WNBA brass were stuck in a lose-lose situation. If they find her again, they'd only amplify her platform further. If they didn't, they'd look inconsistent and weak. Every route pointed to embarrassment. Cunningham had boxed him in with a grin and a logo. This wasn't just a viral moment. It was a branding revolution. Athletes like Sophie are rewriting the rules of engagement. You don't need 30 points a night to be a star. In 2025, you need wit, courage, and a little bit of petty energy. Combine that with digital literacy, and suddenly you're more than a player, you're a brand. And that scares leagues, because they can't own that. They can't trademark authenticity. So here we are, watching a player fine for a TikTok now sitting on brand deals, social media clout, and maybe even a legacy that's bigger than her stat sheet. Sophie Cunningham might not be an all-star yet, but she's already a disruptor, a lightning rod, a cautionary tale for institutions, and a blueprint for athletes with something to say. As for the WNBA, they've got two options: evolve with the times or keep trying to find their way out of relevance. But if they're smart, they'll take a page from Sophie's playbook. Because in a world where every player has a platform and every fan has a voice, the question isn't who speaks out, it's who listens. Let's pick up right where the Arby's-clad chaos left off. Because Sophie Cunningham wasn't just making a statement. She was rewriting the unwritten rules of the WNBA. When a player goes viral for wearing a T-shirt, and it results in a spike in jersey sales, national media coverage, and corporate partnerships, the league should be asking itself one simple question: how do we not see this coming? The truth is, the WNBA has been wrestling with its identity. On one hand, it wants to present itself as a polished, tightly branded product. Clean graphics, sanitized interviews, and well-behaved stars. On the other hand, it's watching the NBA, NFL, and even UFC thrive on spectacle, personality, and sometimes outright chaos. The fans aren't showing up because of polished press releases. They're showing up because of the drama, the emotion, the authenticity. Sophie tapped into that flawlessly. What makes her move so genius isn't just the timing or the visuals, but the fact that she didn't force the moment. She simply existed in the middle of a controversy and let her personality carry the rest. She knew she had eyes on her after the TikTok drama. She knew fans were watching to see how she'd respond. And instead of ducking the attention, she leaned in. That's what separates icons from footnotes. The most iconic sports moments: Ollie taunting Liston, Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue, Serena's catsuit, Marshawn Lynch saying, "I'm just here so I don't get fined." They all have one thing in common: authenticity. You can't manufacture it. You can't fake it. And Sophie Cunningham, love her or hate her, is 100% real. What's even more fascinating is the power shift this creates. The league find her thinking it would discourage behavior. Instead, it inspired a blueprint for media-savvy athletes. In essence, Sophie Cunningham just taught every player in the league how to turn league punishment into brand opportunity. It's a power play. Now imagine you're a rookie. You're watching this unfold from the sidelines. You've got talent, you've got opinions, and maybe you've got a few thousand followers on TikTok. You see Cunningham take a fine and flip it into a cultural moment. What do? You start crafting your own moments, your own message, your own brand. Because here's the deal: modern athletes aren't just athletes. They're media figures, entrepreneurs, content creators. They're mini media companies in sneakers. And the WNBA, if it wants to keep up, it has to stop fearing that. It has to embrace it. Let's go deeper. Think about what Sophie's saga says about leadership, or the lack thereof. The officiating complaints didn't come out of nowhere. They weren't isolated. Players across the league have quietly voiced frustration about inconsistent calls, excessive physicality, and a lack of accountability for referees. But no one really said it out loud until Sophie did. And when she did, instead of starting a conversation, The league tried to shut her up. That's not leadership. That's damage control. Leadership would have looked like the WNBA holding a public forum, addressing officiating standards, listening to players, maybe even reforming the review process or investing in better training. But instead, they punished honesty and hoped the noise would die down. Spoiler, it didn't. It got louder and more expensive because now fans aren't just noticing Sophie's rising star. They're noticing the WNBA's missteps. They're asking why the league seems more invested in policing players than improving the product. They're wondering why it takes a viral video to get attention on real issues. The league's reluctance to evolve isn't just stifling, it's dangerous. And Cunningham's success is a warning shot. Let's zoom out even further. What does this moment mean for women's sports in general? It means athletes are finally reclaiming the narrative. For decades, female athletes were told to be grateful. Grateful for airtime, grateful for smaller checks, grateful for second-class resources. But now, they're flipping that dynamic. They're demanding more, and when they don't get it, they're building it themselves. That's what Sophie did. She didn't wait for a marketing team to script her comeback. She was a comeback. She wrote the script herself, through a shirt, a smile, and a smart understanding of how viral culture works. And it's working. Young girls watching the WNBA today aren't just seeing basketball. They're seeing personality, resistance, humor, strategy. They're seeing that you don't have to play by the rules when the rules are broken. You can challenge them, and you might just win. But let's not ignore the flip side. This kind of rebellion has consequences. Not everyone is celebrating Sophie. Some critics are calling her a distraction. Some say she's exploiting the controversy. Some even say she's dividing the team. And maybe there's a tiny bit of truth there. Viral fame can disrupt locker room chemistry. It can shift attention. It can put pressure on coaching staff, front offices, and even teammates who now have to navigate a storm they didn't ask for. But that's part of the new game. Fame is no longer optional. Visibility isn't something you can turn off. Athletes today are judged not just by their stat lines, but by their timelines. And honestly, that's not a bad thing, if it's handled right. Because what Sophie Cunningham is proving is that being outspoken doesn't have to mean being selfish. She's not skipping practice. She's not slacking off on defense. She's performing and engaging. And that's what makes her dangerous. Not just opponents, but anyone trying to control her. So where does this go next? Well, that depends on the WNBA. If the league is smart, it won't fine her again. It'll feature her. It'll invite her to the table. Let her be part of the change. Make her a face of the league. Not just for controversy, but for courage. Because let's be real, players like Sophie are the reason people are watching. Not just because of what they do, but because of what they dare to do. So yeah, a t-shirt sparked a media firestorm. But that fire is shedding light on something bigger, a shift in power. A new era where athletes aren't just players, they're disruptors, voices, and architects of sports' future. And Sophie Cunningham? She's already one step ahead. After the ARBY'S shirt went viral, and Sophie Cunningham's name was trending across sports media and TikTok feeds, something subtle but crucial happened. The narrative around her shifted. She wasn't just that player who got fined for trashing the refs. She became the player who turned a league fine into a brand empire. The fine wasn't just a punishment. It was the spark. The ARBY'S shirt was the kindling. And Sophie? She struck the match. But let's be clear, this wasn't luck. It was instinct, timing, and guts. She knew exactly what she was doing. The shirt wasn't random. It was calculated. It was clever. ARBY'S of all brands isn't exactly synonymous with basketball culture. But that was a genius. It was offbeat. It was unexpected. And that's exactly why it worked. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. As Sophie's stock rose, other players started watching closely. Because this wasn't just about getting likes on social media. It was about controlling the story. The WNBA has spent years fighting for visibility. Suddenly, a player who was never the face of the league was front and center. All because she dared to say what others wouldn't. The fans were listening. Brands were listening. And most importantly, the league was watching. So, What did the WNBA do next? Nothing. And that silence, that was the loudest part. They didn't apologize. They didn't address the officiating complaints. They didn't acknowledge Sophie's growing influence. And while they stayed quiet, Sophie kept moving. More brand mentions, more interviews, more jersey sales. Each one a reminder that trying to suppress her voice only amplified it. The real kicker? It's not even about Arby's anymore. The shirt became a symbol of defiance, a symbol of savvy, a symbol that players in the WNBA aren't waiting for the league to catch up. They're building their own brands, their own empires in real time. And Sophie is leading the charge. And fans, they love it. They're not just tuning into games. They're tuning into personalities. They're following storylines, rivalries, reactions. They're watching the tunnel entrances just to see what someone's wearing, what message they're sending, what joke or jab or genius marketing move is coming next. This is what makes sports culture in 2025 so different from what it was even 5 years ago. It's not just about buckets and buzzer beaters. It's about the moment, the commentary, the meme potential, the viral clip that crosses over from ESPN highlights to TikTok For You pages and back again. Sophie Cunningham didn't just understand that. She weaponized it. And now she's winning the game off the court, too. What's even more fascinating is how her strategy mirrors the rise of athletes like Serena Williams, Naomi Osaka, and even Travis Kelce. Athletes who are more than athletes, who understand their power beyond stats. Sophie's not just putting up points. She's putting herself in boardrooms, in brand deals, on billboards. And the ripple effect is massive. The WNBA is being forced to confront the fact that its players aren't waiting for institutional validation anymore. They're building audiences directly. They're monetizing their voice, their look, their opinions. It's influencer culture meets athlete branding. Except instead of makeup tutorials, it's post-game rants and tunnel walks. Now, let's get into the economics of all this. When a player like Sophie suddenly becomes a top jersey seller, not because of an MVP season, but because of one viral moment, the league has to reassess how it defines value. It's not just stats and minutes played. It's reach, engagement, cultural relevance. Sophie Cunningham is now, quite literally, a revenue generator, and not just for herself. Merch sales benefit the team. Ticket sales rise. Viewership spikes. Even brands like ARBY'S see a bump in visibility, thanks to that one T-shirt and a well-timed camera flash. This isn't just a moment. It's a movement, and the timing couldn't be better. Women's sports are at a tipping point. The audiences are growing. The media attention is intensifying. But the infrastructure? Still catching up. Still clinging to old models. The Sophie saga is a wake-up call. Adapt or fall behind. It's also a reminder that the most compelling stories in sports don't come from planned press releases. They come from chaos, conflict, unfiltered honesty. That's what people connect with. That's what cuts through the noise. And that's why Sophie's story resonates. Because she didn't follow the PR playbook. She flipped it. She said what she meant, wore what she wanted, took the fine, and turned it into profit. That's not just impressive, it's iconic. And here's the twist. She's not done. If the league has any sense, they'll lean into this. Feature her in promos. Give her mic'd-up moments. Let her be who she is. Because clearly, the fans are already on board. Trying to box her in or clean up her image would be a disaster. It would miss the point entirely. Sophie Cunningham is exactly what the WNBA needs right now. A disruptor, a wild card, a voice. Because the truth is, every league needs that player. The one who speaks up. The one who turns punishment into PR gold. The one who knows that playing the game doesn't stop when the final buzzer sounds. It continues in interviews, in TikToks, and brand collabs, and yes, even in ARBY'S shirts. So as the WNBA heads into the next phase of its evolution, it should take notes, not from consultants, but from its own players. Because the new blueprint for success isn't just about gameplay. It's about game awareness. And Sophie Cunningham? She's already 3 moves ahead.